Welcome to the You on the Camino de Santiago podcast. This podcast is for and about first-time pilgrims walking the pilgrimage routes in Spain, France, and Portugal. With your host, guide and longtime pilgrim, Nancy Reynolds of the Camino Experience. Show of hands. How many pilgrims were inspired to walk the Camino after seeing a movie set on the trail? Were you? For most people, it was the movie The Way with Emilio, Estevez, and Martin Sheen. For my guest today, it was the charming Hallmark movie Journey to You. Hi, this is Nancy, coming to you again from the Camino Frances, specifically the town of Zubiri. As with last week's episode, I'm not actually recording live from the town, but that's where I am as this episode goes live. I'm going to be live within La Terraza, our new pilgrim community, though, as time and energy permit. That's one way we keep the spirit of the Camino alive, and we'll do that as other La Terraza pilgrims return to walk the various Camino routes. For now, though, let me tell you a bit more about my guest today. Jeff from Georgia. Jeff is recently retired, and his discovery of the Camino after watching the movie Journey to You led to an immediate plot twist in his newly implemented retirement plans. Jeff asked some excellent questions, so you're going to get some more information on using trekking poles on the Camino, how to get the most benefit from them, and how not to lose your poles. And I've got some pro tips for you on staying in Roncesvalles. Let's go ahead and meet Jeff. Jeff, hi. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. Welcome.
Thanks, Nancy.
I'm glad you decided to do this. I was kind of intrigued by a couple things in your request form, so we're going to get to that. I want to hear about how you got into this. How did you get yourself roped into walking the Camino? Because I think a lot of people say yes to this and go, oh, that was interesting. And your decision to walk the Camino is fairly recent, so we're going to talk about that as well.
Yeah, great.
You ready to get started?
Yes.
Okay, let's start where we always start. We'll put the pin in the map. Will you share with us your Camino plans, please?
Yeah, my pin in the map is in North Georgia, right at the edge of the North Georgia mountains and just north of Atlanta. And I am going to be walking the Camino. Looking at my countdown timer, I fly out in around 3 months.
Oh my gosh.
So sometime in September. I am going to walk the Frances route starting in St. John. So my plan is to, because of the warnings around the ride from Pamplona to St. John, I am going to go to Paris and come down on a couple of trains to St. John as recommended.
Yeah, let's make sure we get that warning mentioned again, and that is that the road from Pamplona to St. John is very narrow and windy, and if you're prone to motion sickness, you're not going to enjoy that very much.
I am beyond prone to motion sickness, and so when I heard that was the easiest decision I've made so far, is to go through France and not go through Spain.
I totally get that. I'm really grateful because lately, as in last year and this year, the bus drivers seem to have decided they don't want people vomiting in their buses, and they've mellowed out. I have been in a bus with Mario Andretti on a holiday, right, where he's, this should be fun, but the last 3 rides on that bus have been pretty mellow. Nonetheless, I support that decision.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so you're coming on a train from Paris to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. What happens next?
Right, yeah. And so I plan to take at least a day in St. Jean, and coming from the East Coast, and so there's some amount of jet lag associated with that. But then I'm going to walk at least to Santiago de Compostela and maybe to finish there as well.
Wonderful. How much time have you given yourself?
Well, I'm blocking off 40 days.
Okay.
And so thinking that may be enough to get there and maybe even get down to Porto or Lisbon and fly back to Atlanta from Portugal.
Okay. Does that mean you're waiting to book your homeward bound flight until later?
Right. I haven't booked that yet.
Okay. Oh, that's kind of exciting to have that open-ended ticket idea. Yeah, your face kind of lit up at that.
I retired about a month ago and only found out about the Camino a short time before that. And I'm in a place where I can dedicate that kind of time,
Mm,
and it's a luxury, and I'm very thankful.
wonderful. All right, so let's talk about that. How did you hear about the Camino?
My background, just real quick, because I'm going
Yeah,
to connect a couple of dots here.
great.
Was in the military for 23 years. I was a medic in the military, in the U.S. military. Worked for FEMA after that, worked at the Centers for Disease Control after that. I've been in a bunch of different countries doing emergency response kinds of things for different federal agencies. But I'm also a huge Hallmark movie channel person. My kids give me grief about that all the time because my background you just doesn't lend itself typically to liking the Hallmark channel, but I had it on in April, this past April, and there was this movie on, and I was multitasking, but I was paying close enough attention to the movie to know what it was about. And it was about this thing called the Camino de Santiago. And I'm like, is this real? Or did the Hallmark Channel make this up to shoot a movie about it? And so during the movie, I Googled, I'm searching for the Camino, and doggone it, it's real. And
It's real.
yeah, it's real. And that was either on a Saturday or a Sunday, don't remember. The next day, I watched the movie The Way with Martin Sheen. The next day, I watched a couple of documentaries that some young adults made about their experience. But I was really hooked during the Hallmark movie. I was already like, I'm going.
Okay, I just have to say I love that you love Hallmark movies because I have it in my mind that it's only women who love Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where are the men who love these things? Because these guys, the men on okay, I'm telling on myself, I am also a Hallmark fan and a new Hallmark fan. And it's like I entered into this lovely little alternative universe where people are kind and respectful and decent and do the right thing all the time. It's like I want to live in that world. Yeah, and so I love it, and I've seen the movie that you're talking about. Do you remember the name of it?
It was called Journey to You, I think.
Yeah, something
Yeah,
like that. I'll make sure it's
something
in the
like
show
that.
notes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do love that you love Hallmark movies and you and I'll have a side conversation about your favorites and what genre in there you like because
Yeah.
I can geek out on Hallmark movies for sure. Yeah. All right. So Journey into You. So that I watched that movie and having been on the Camino, I watched it with a different eye, right? I watched it with I'm looking for accuracy and I'm looking to know where are they when they're doing this and are they really doing it? So based on that movie and the movie The Way, what are your expectations about the Camino?
Great question, Nancy. I think that for me, it's going to be an adventure. I've had the chance to visit a lot of countries around the world, and this is going to be a different kind of adventure. It's going to be longer. It's going to be solo, but I'm looking forward to the many different dynamics and aspects of it. So for me, there's the physical. I mean, obviously, there's the mental, the emotional, the spiritual. My Christian faith is an important part of my life. And then there's getting to experience Spain at a very up close and personal, in a very up close and personal way with the smaller towns and villages and then some of the big municipalities. And so I am just like really looking forward to this.
I love that. Yeah, and the thing about those movies is they are fictionalized for sure, and they also give us a visual of what Spain and the Camino looks like. And can you imagine yourself there when you see those movies?
I can,
Yeah.
yeah, I can. And, and I'm also looking at, several times a week, I'll find something on social media of pilgrims that are on the Camino now that are documenting their trip. And so, you put all that together and it starts to form, an expectation, I think, or, you start to put together what you think your Camino experience may be like.
So let's look at that. Do you have a plan yet of where you'll be staying, what types of accommodations you'll be staying, if you'll be carrying your backpack or using luggage transport? Have you thought through all those pieces yet?
I have. So I'm definitely carrying my backpack the whole way. I appreciate all the different options that are available to folks based on how they want their, Camino experience to look like. But a lot of years in the military, a lot of years carrying a backpack or a rucksack, and so in fact, I've been able to train already with a pretty full pack, and it's really not that bad. I think I'm going to get in, at or under 10% of my
Great.
body weight. So I'm planning to carry the pack. And I'm planning to stay in a variety of accommodations, the pensiones, the albergues, the Camino Rurales, or the Casa Rurales, the hotels, or the hostels. So I'm open to staying in any of those options for a place to crash. Yeah.
Yeah, great. There's a huge variety of places, even within each class of accommodation. So no two hotels are alike, no two albergues are alike.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how much planning have you done of the actual itinerary? So when you're starting from Saint Jean, you have an end date in mind. How much have you planned in between?
I haven't yet.
Mm,
Yeah, I haven't yet. And so the in fact, I was going to even ask you maybe about an early part of the trip, but
yeah.
I mean, I've done a couple of 20 plus kilometer walks already, not back to back, day after day,
Okay.
like that would be the reality. But I'm able to knock those out relatively early in the day,
Okay.
and it may be a day I want to go 30, and it may be a day I only want to go 18, and so yeah, so I haven't really planned a detailed or even a semi-detailed itinerary yet.
Okay. And you don't have to. That's
Yeah,
the
right,
thing.
exactly. Yeah,
Starting in late September, most of the crowds have died down. So it's certainly not the craziness that you get the first week in September. So you shouldn't have any trouble finding places to stay, with the possible exception of if you want to stay at Refuge Orson or Auberge Borda. Do you have that as part of your plan?
I do. Yeah, and that I actually had a question about that. Is
Yeah.
now a good time for that, or
Now's a perfect time for that. What's the question?
my question is about Roncesvalles,
Okay.
and I didn't know if that was like a must see, a must experience kind of thing, or if I planned to spend the first night, halfway up the Pyrenees in Borda. The next day, if I was feeling strong, if I could just blow by Roncesvalles, stop and whatever, but blow by that and stay in the town after that, or even the town after that, Burgat or Espinal, or
You already know all the names of the towns. That's
yeah,
fabulous. Yeah. So the answer is you can do it whatever you'd like. Yeah. So if you stay at Refuge Orson, you have a 19-kilometer walk the next day. If you stay at Borda, it's 1 kilometer less.
right,
So for some people, 18, 19 kilometers is like, oh, I can get another 10 in me. What's the big deal here? For some people, because it's so much uphill and because it's a very steep descent down into Roncesvalles, 18 or 19 kilometers is quite enough. Thank you. That's
yeah,
my feeling because I have these wonky knees that just don't like that descent.
yeah.
Roncesvalles, let me tell you a little bit about Roncesvalles, and that might help make the decision. So, Roncesvalles has a large albergue that has over 200 beds. Say, I'm thinking about 245 beds. They take reservations in advance, but they also hold back about 60 beds for people without reservations. So, late September, you won't have any trouble making that decision on the fly.
Okay,
So,
great.
that's an option. It's a huge albergue, and some people love it and some people don't love it. So, on three of the floors in the albergues, one, two, three, there are rows of cubicles, and each cubicle has four beds in it. That's on two floors. On the top floor, there are just rows of beds. No one on top of you, but just rows of beds in little cubicles. So the cubicles make it kind of nice. You're not like nose to nose with everybody, but they're open up above. So you can hear absolutely everything going on. And then there are restrooms at the end of each floor, one for men, one for women. And if you happen to be close to the restroom, you're going to have a loud night because people will be going in and out. And for some reason, those toilets flush like they're on loudspeaker. I don't know what the deal is. But the facility is very nice. It's very well organized. It's clean. It's run by Dutch volunteers, and they have a big team of volunteers, and they're all over it. So it's a nice experience to have that and to be in this old hamlet that has served pilgrims for hundreds of years. So you feel the history when you walk in. The other thing about Roncesvalles, if you prefer to stay in a private room, there are 3 places with private rooms. There are also 3 places that serve dinner and 3 places that serve breakfast. So you don't have a lot of choices, but you've got good choices.
Yeah.
Now, the main meal in Roncesvalles is trout. So unless you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you're going to get a fish on your plate, and it will be looking at you. So just so you know,
Yeah.
it's a wonderful experience to have a meal there, because if you get into one of the dining rooms where the albergue sends pilgrims, you're going to be put at a table with whoever else happens to be at that table. So you'll be meeting people right there over dinner and sharing that experience of just walking over the Pyrenees, which if the weather is great, you'll be raving about the beauty. If the weather is horrible, you'll be commiserating about the weather. So it's a really nice spot to just make a stop and enjoy that experience of connecting with other pilgrims. Then the final thing to say about Roncesvalles is there's a church in the center, and every night they do a mass with a pilgrim's blessing at the end. And for some people, that's hugely significant. Now, I have also heard from a friend of mine who said that the priest was not as interested in the mass as he was. So it was sort of a blasé experience. So as with everything on the Camino, you don't know what you're going to get. So those are sort of the facts of Roncesvalles, and then you can just trust your gut. If you continue on and go to Burguete or Espinal, you'll be passing a grocery store. There's no grocery store in Roncesvalles, but if you walk onto Burguete right when you get into the town, there is a supermarket. So if you're inclined to cook your own food, you can pull over at the grocery store if you hit it during its opening hours, grab some food to take where you're staying. So that's another option to kind of think through.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's very helpful. Yeah.
Big old download. Here you go. Now, also, you purchased the Camino planning kit that I offer. And in the second part of that, it's called the On the Trail Guide, and it covers Sejan to Pamplona. And there's some specific information in there about Roncesvalles and about the walk over the Pyrenees, quite a lot of detail. So you can really get a sense of what that walk is going to be like if you want to know in advance. Some people like the surprise. So it's sort of a spoiler alert.
Okay, great. Thanks for that.
Yeah, that's a long answer, which you tend to get from me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they're always helpful.
Good. I'm glad. All right. Let's see. So we've talked about Hallmark movies. We've talked about retirement. I want to ask you another question about retirement. So when you retired, you had recently heard about the Camino. What did you envision for your first 6 months or year of retirement before you heard about the Camino? What were you planning on before that?
Yeah. So thanks for that question.
Yeah.
So what I had planned for retirement was a combination of, really being able to focus on self-care,
Mm.
getting the right diet, getting the right exercise every day, and doing that in the mornings. And then in the afternoons, that's when you go to the dentist or the doctor or Kroger or whatever, you're going to do. So that was the plan. And then I have 3 kids that live really close to me, and they're in various stages of adulthood. They're all adults, but they're in various stages. And so, supporting them, spending time with them. And then finally, most of the bottom floor of my house is a full-blown woodworking shop. And so
Oh.
I do a lot of woodworking. So that was my general plan, going into retirement. The list of things I've promised to make people out of wood is really, really long. And so I was going to start on that list. And all of that got pushed to the right by
Mm.
about 6 months because I found out about the Camino.
Oh my goodness. So it's hard to imagine after the Camino when you're this far out from it and you haven't taken your first steps yet. What do you think the Camino is going to do to your retirement plans past that actually doing it that first 6 months?
I think I think I'm going to be very thankful and very grateful to have had the time and the resources to dedicate to a Camino like this. Probably the first of at least several, I would think, just based on what I know right now, my expectation. And so I don't know that it's going to change a lot of my retirement plans, but it definitely, I'm making room in my retirement plans for the Camino. And like I plan to do with anything else that's going to be important, in my life, even the first month of retirement, which is, I'm just like, it's everything it's cracked up to be.
You recommend it?
Yeah, highly recommend it. Do it as soon as you can. But even in the first month, I've been able to pick and choose the things I do based on
Mm,
what's important to me.
mm,
And the Camino, this is a commitment. It's a
yeah.
big deal, and I'm just thankful to have the opportunity.
Wonderful. Yeah, I just have this feeling of spaciousness and opportunity. It just and freedom. It just feels so good. Yeah, yeah, which is kind of why I my livelihood is based on the Camino. My business is based on the Camino because I'm not ready to retire yet. And so I want to have fun while I'm still working. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. I'd love to talk a little bit about the pilgrimage aspect of this. You had shared earlier in what you had written to me that your faith is an important part of this. Do you have any thoughts on the nature of pilgrimage and how that plays into your faith?
I do. It's I feel funny calling myself a pilgrim.
Mm,
I had never associated that descriptor to my life. Thinking about the early Christians and the pilgrimages they made, and especially with friends I have that are Catholic,
mhm.
that their Catholic tradition is very important to them. I mean, you talk about they know about the Camino more than my friends who aren't Catholic know about the Camino. And when I mentioned this to them, you can see it. And even last night, I was having dinner in a town close to here last night, and the guy I was having dinner with, a good friend of mine, long time friend, and you could see it on his face. His faith is from the Catholic tradition, and it's meaningful. It was meaningful to him
Yeah.
that I was doing the Camino. Not that he was doing it, but that I was doing it. It was meaningful.
Oh,
So I think that I'll have a lot of time, hopefully, with new friends and acquaintances, but I'll also have a lot of time on my own. And it's a chance to reflect on many reasons I have to be thankful,
yeah.
the many reasons I have to be grateful.
Mm,
And I think that's really, I'm not looking for like an epiphany, or I'm not looking for anything more substantial than just being in that moment and being receptive to the people around me, the impact they're going to have on me, the impact I'm going to have on them. And so it's very nebulous, but I'm really looking forward to that aspect of the Camino.
ah, I think you articulated that beautifully. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big epiphany. It doesn't have to be a massively transformational experience. You are walking with you and with spirit or God or whatever your name is for your belief system. So, yeah, with Christ, with God, with whomever. Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, I kind of want to sit with that for a few minutes. Mm, very nice. All right, I had another question I thought of. Oh, I know what it was. So, stepping back over to the more practical things, you said that you were a medic in the military. I'm wondering if you have assembled your first aid kit for the Camino yet.
I have most of it put together already. When I would deploy with the military, or when I would deploy to Africa for Ebola with CDC, or any number of other responses, you're always worried about protecting the force and protecting yourself. And so we would
Yeah.
typically deploy with our own individual private little pharmacy. And so I've already been to my primary care doc, and I'm like, hey, look, this is a list of stuff I'd love to take with me if you would prescribe it for me. And she did. So I've got my little pharmacy all squared away already. And then I need to just get stuff like, for potential blister care and first aid. But the drugs I need to feel well as well as possible, I think I've got all those nailed down so far.
Okay. Okay. So I'm imagining, here's your backpack and 25% of it is a first aid kit.
Yeah, maybe a little less than that, but substantial nonetheless. Yeah.
So you're the guy that we want to walk with because you're always going to have the supplies and you'll be able to help us take care of our feet and anything else that comes up.
Probably.
Yeah,
Right.
little run in with the barbed wire fence, little
Yeah.
trip on a rock. We need Jeff close by.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I have a friend who works at REI. I'm sure you're familiar with REI, the sporting goods store in the US. And she had a pilgrim come in one time to buy a first aid kit, and she picked up, a big one, like, big first aid kit, a foot long first aid kit. And she goes, "Come here for just a second here. I'm gonna show you what you actually need." So I'm wondering, I actually want to see your first aid kit when you get to Spain.
Yeah.
See,
Okay. All right.
and then I'm going to check again in Santiago and see if you're still carrying the whole thing.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. I kind of love that image in my mind of Jeff the medic. We just put a little red cross on the back of you and people know where to find you, although that might not be your vision for your Camino.
Yeah. Well, you're always ready to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that actually is the ethos of the Camino, is that people are ready to help. And it's kind of interesting. The first couple days out, or even the first week out, people are very surprised when somebody offers to help or offers to give them something from their pack or from their stash. And I've seen people go, no, 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 that you need that. I don't want to take that from you. And then 2 weeks down the trail, they're like, oh, cool, thanks, I'll take it. Like there's no hesitation because we've learned that the currency of the Camino is the give and take. It's that circulation of I have it, you need it, it's yours. So it's an interesting evolution as people walk.
Yeah, but what a wonderful spirit to walk in, though.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, if you and I are ever in the same town, we're doing movie night.
Okay. Done.
Very
Done.
good. You said you have some questions. What questions do you have for me?
Yeah, so a few. I have a few. You alluded to one, so maybe I'll start with that one.
Okay.
I wondered what the traffic was going to be like, late September through the month of October. And you started to answer that, but it sounds like there isn't going to be a shortage of places to stay and maybe not a whole lot of competition for those places either.
Yeah. So the thing that's even happening now when it's busy is people read on social media that it's busy, busy, busy. You have to book your beds. And that's true exactly where that person is. But 50 kilometers either direction, it might not be busy. And so that's true all the time on the Camino. It becomes more true later in the season. And so towards the end of September, the number of people starting in Saint Jean diminishes. And so there's more availability of beds. But then what happens around the middle of October is places start to close down because there's not enough traffic to sustain the business end of it. And so as you get to the middle of September, toward the end of September, you'll just want to be a bit more mindful of checking to make sure that places are actually open when you are headed to that town or village.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah.
And there's multiple apps. As long as those apps are up to date, should be able to check.
Yeah, more or less. The two most reliable sources that I found are the Wise Pilgrim app and the Gronze website. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Gronze. I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
It's GRONZE.com. Right. And Gronze, especially, I do know, or I have read, they have a team behind them keeping things updated. And Wise Pilgrim, I believe, is the same. And I think those are probably the two most popular where accommodations actually take the initiative to update their information on those two. So there's also Buen Camino, which I think is pretty reliable. But truth be told, I cross-reference. So I have all three of the apps Buen Camino, Wise Pilgrim, and Camino Ninja, because I like the way Ninja organizes the information. And I just cross reference. If I don't see what I like on one, I go to the other one,
Hmm.
or I go to Google Maps even to find what I'm looking for.
So was Camino Ninja, was that resurrected? I know in some of your earlier podcasts that I'm in, there was a period of time where it may not have been as robust as it is again, maybe?
Yes, yeah. So what happened about 3 years ago? The owner passed away unexpectedly, and no one had access to the account, to the platform it was hosted on. So it couldn't be updated. What I heard and what I read is that some pilgrims out of Germany recreated it. And so they took that exact image and visual and organizational strategy and just recreated the app. And they work on it continually. So it should be pretty updated. I love how it organizes the information. The town to town distances are super easy to navigate. So that's why I like that one. So I believe it is pretty up to date at this point, but who knows?
Yeah.
Because things change. They change often and they change fast. Now, the other thing to consider with the apps in particular is they all have maps in there that use GPS to put you right on the Camino Trail. So your little blue dot will show you where you are relative to the Camino Trail. Different apps do better in different areas. So, for example, Camino Ninja, I find is best at the beginning. So, specifically, the stage from Zubiri to Pamplona, there's a little diversion to a church up on the hill called the Baldica. And I think Camino Ninja is the only one that shows that diversion. Then when you get closer to Burgos, there's a beautiful river route that you can take to walk into Burgos that will keep you off the long, tedious industrial stretch. And Wise Pilgrim does the best job of identifying that one. So that's why I cross-reference, because I like to see, all right, who's helping me at this point? And they're all waitlist. So that's the beauty of the apps.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, you can have them all because they're waitlist. And there's only one that charges. That's the Wise Pilgrim, and that's worth it. That's
Yeah.
absolutely worth the cost. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. What else you got?
So a question about just the reality of day to day. So let's just say it's a random Tuesday or Wednesday on the Camino,
Yeah.
knocked out your desired distance that day. You're at the place that you're going to rest, that evening. My question is about the backpack. And
Okay.
so maybe if you have a private room, there's a lock and you can leave your backpack in the room. But if you're in a common space with the albergue, do you need to, when you're walking around that little town or that municipality for dinner that night, is it okay to leave your backpack in the albergue common area, or do you need to schlep that around?
Yeah. Good question. The short answer is yes, it's okay to leave it. So, private rooms, of course, no problem. Private rooms all have locks and you have the key. Some places ask you to leave the key at reception, but that's pretty rare in my experience. And if you're staying in private rooms in albergues, they lock as well. So you can leave your backpack no problem. In a shared dorm in an albergue, many of them do have lockers. So you would just take advantage of the locker. Some of them don't permit the backpacks to be taken into the sleeping room. So they even have a central area where you leave your backpack. And the trick is, first of all, just keep the real valuables with you at all times. Common traveler sense, right? You
Right.
keep the passport, the cash, the credit cards, important documents, any jewelry you're carrying or wearing, keep that with you. And then everything else can be left with the backpack. Then the other piece of it is to just be aware of who's in the room with you. So notice, do I know that person? Have I seen them before? Are they being overly friendly? Are they being too familiar? Or does everybody feel cool? And then just you learn to trust that sense to know how you feel about things. And then, if you're uncomfortable with a person in the dorm, you might just take, if there's something truly you can't stand to lose, you might just take that with you in a little day pack to dinner.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you will see, I saw it just in May when I was on the Camino, is when people get into town before the albergue opens, they will line up their backpacks outside the albergue to create a line, create a waiting line. And I haven't done that in years because I haven't stayed in albergues. You want to just get a feel for the area and who's around to see if you feel comfortable dashing off to the bar to get something to eat or drink, dashing off to the shop. You might want to make friends and say, hey, I'm just going to step away. Do you mind keeping an eye on my pack? Just make sure it's someone you've known for at least a few days.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. All right.
One of the lessons of the Camino is to learn to trust your own intuition. And sometimes we get that right. Sometimes we get it wrong, but it's all part of the journey.
Yeah. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay. Next question. I've been able to get to log a decent amount of kilometers in with my pack, with a nearly full pack, not completely full, but with a nearly
Great.
full pack already.
Great.
Learned a lot just from that. But I have not used trekking poles yet. And looking at the literature that's available in the sources that I've checked, it looks like 60 to 80% of people use trekking poles, and there's some percentage that don't. And in a lot of the YouTube videos I've seen, I mean, obviously when people are walking on a flat, easy stretch, they're carrying their poles, or their poles are in their pack. But maybe your thoughts on that one more time.
Sure. Sure. I'm a big fan of trekking poles. And I think the important thing is to understand what they actually offer you. Because if you don't use them to their best benefit, you do end up carrying them across Spain, which is, they're not terribly heavy, but why would you carry extra weight if you don't have to? So there are a few things that trekking poles do. One is they help you maintain your balance, which is important because you've got this backpack on and your center of gravity has been disrupted. And so the trekking poles give you 2 extra limbs to hit the ground at any given time. I use my trekking poles on flat surfaces, meaning not uphill, not downhill. It might be uneven terrain or it might be smooth terrain. But on flat surfaces, those trekking poles just give me some balance. The other thing that trekking poles do for you is you can use your core strength and your arm strength going up hills by pushing with the poles. And what you do is you put the pole slightly behind you with each step and push yourself up the hill. So it adds additional muscle strength to pushing you up the hill. And then the other thing that trekking poles do that I personally cannot live without is they slow you down on the descent and they give you what I call a portable banister. So I need help because I have problem knees, have always had problem knees. And so what you do is you make your trekking poles a little bit longer so they get out in front. They actually hit the ground when you extend them out in front, and you push on them with your hands to take some of the pressure off your knees. And there is a statistic, somebody did the math to figure out what percentage of wear it takes off your knees. So if you have troubled knees at all, you or anyone listening, trekking poles will help with your knees. So those are the main reasons to use trekking poles. And then you want to get used to them so that you actually use them because you really don't want to carry them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't used them yet. I haven't started training with those yet. But it seems like the majority opinion out there is that there's going to be times you need them. You may not need them the whole way, but you're going to need them. And when you need them, you need them.
Yeah. And you may end up wanting them the whole way. That's the other thing is once you learn how to use the straps correctly,
right.
I feel very much at home with them on my hands and kind of awkward without them once I get going. Yeah. And you can buy poles at a number of places along the Camino at all different price points. So you can invest in them or you can just get, let's get some to test drive them and not feel bad if 22 euros gets thrown away or, donated to the next pilgrim because you didn't like them.
Right.
So, yeah, so you've got some options with that.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
No right or wrong way. Some people don't use them, don't need them, don't want them.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is if you do use poles, find a way to make them identifiably yours. So that could be by, I put duct tape around mine and I choose the hot pink duct tape. So nobody else has my poles with hot pink duct tape. Not because I love hot pink, but it's, it's memorable. People will put their initials on the top of the pole, or they will, tie ribbons to it or something to identify. There have been an increase in stories of people's poles going missing from albergues, and that's because many albergues will have a tub at the entrance or by the boot parking lot is what I call it, where you have to put your poles in. They don't want them in the dorm rooms. Mm-hmm. And so people put their poles in, and then the next morning people go sort through to find their poles, and they sometimes pick the wrong ones. Or they sometimes give themselves an upgrade if they have cheap poles and someone has nicer poles. So it's kind of bad I think that's bad karma, but it happens. So just somehow make them identifiably yours.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. One more question.
Yeah. Let's have it.
So when I'm walking, when I'm training, I often listen to your podcast. And, I started with the very first one, and I am well into season 3 already.
Great.
And it seems like there's, you're highlighting stories of people that are getting ready to walk. And then once they finished walking, their perspectives on what that experience was like for them.
Yeah.
All those are great. From episode 60 or 70 or 80 or whatever until where you are now, is it more of the personal stories, or how would you characterize the podcast in like the second half? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. And every time I start a new season, I think through what do I want? What do I want to be doing here? What do I want to talk about? What stories do I want to share? So later on, I do get a lot more after the Camino stories of people who have gone and walked it and have come back. I've done more both before and after, so you get those additional perspectives. And then there are a few episodes in there with just me talking and giving information. For example, the end of 2024, I did a whole series on goal setting and how do we wind down the year so that we can set ourselves up for a great next year. And I used information from a book called Your Best Year Yet and used their format. And then going into January, we continued with the goal setting. And so we did some of that. I heard some good feedback on that not everybody has built those muscles on how to set goals and achieve goals. So that was really fun for me to do and also share my goals for the year with everybody. So yeah, so it's still a mix, still a lot of different things. Most of the interviews are one person only, but there are a couple of interviews with couples coming up in the most recent batch of episodes.
Okay, wonderful. The information in the series of podcasts that I've listened to, Nancy, I mean, it's been my single most valuable source of information. So very thankful for those. And unfortunately for my kids, if they're in the car with me, then they're getting secondhand podcast information as well. So
like they're really interested, right? They're probably tired of me. Yeah, I've been hearing that. Yeah, in the most recent episodes, I have some people on who are like, "Oh God, really, Nancy again? We're on a 6-hour road trip. Don't you have anything else we can listen to?"
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I really appreciate your feedback. It helps me to know that this is landing the way I want it to land, and that it's impacting people and supporting people the way that I want it to support people. So thank you for that. That's helpful.
I think my last question would be, any chance you're going to be on the Camino in Spain, at the end of September?
Yes, I will be.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the question is where.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going to fly to London for my birthday, which is September 3rd, and spend a few days there before I go to Madrid. I have a group that I'm leading from Saint-Jean-Pied-du-Port. We start walking on September 14th. And then after that, I'm going to do my own walk. This is the 20-year anniversary of my first Camino. And so I'm super excited because the day that my group walks into Pamplona is the exact date that I started my first Camino 20 years ago. So I'll be in Pamplona for that day. And then my goal is to walk to Santiago. But I will skip some sections because I'm going to mirror it on what I did on my first Camino. And I did skip some sections due to knee problems. So yeah, so I hope we'll cross paths. That would be wonderful. I hope we can stay in touch and let me know where you are. And yeah, we'll share a cafe con leche or pinchos, tapas, wherever we are.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
I look forward to that. Any last minute things you'd like to share?
Just again, a big thank you for all the prep and information. It's been so helpful. I mean, I feel like I could start next week if I needed to. I do want my Spanish language skills to be better than they are now, but I still have 3 months. So yeah.
Wonderful. Well, It's absolutely my pleasure. And I love knowing that it's helpful and that you're finding it useful. And I love that I get to go on these training walks with everybody. So that's the design of a podcast, is we get to go and do what we're doing. And if only I got the physical benefit of all those miles you walked, but such is life. All right, Jeff, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I really enjoyed hearing your story, getting to know you a little bit. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Nancy.
All right. Bye.
Bye.